We are not okay. We're not okay. As my friend Brett Stevens so succinctly put it, all of us now live in an October 8th world. We've endured the painful, distressing, and clarifying events of the past 151 days. That video that we just saw could have been 10 times or 100 times as long, and it still wouldn't capture all the anti-Jewish hate of just the past few months. The world of October the 8th is one in which the perpetrators of the worst anti-Semitic massacre since the Holocaust are celebrated as heroes, not just in Ramallah or Beirut, but in London and New York and on campuses like Harvard and Columbia. An October the 8th world is one in which the prayers for the safety of hostages, men and women, children and the elderly, are met with vile hate speech and moral confusion. An October the 8th world is one in which rape and sexual assault draw universal outrage unless committed against Israeli women and girls. An October the 8th world is one in which college campuses are policed relentlessly for the smallest of microaggressions. But there seems to be no cop on the beat when the insults and threats are screamed at Jewish students in the quad, outside their fraternities, or even in the classroom. The world of October the 8th is one of an unprecedented surge of anti-Semitism all over the planet. In Brazil, incidents are up over 960%. In France, 384%. In Germany, 320%. And right here in the United States, up 360% since 10/7. If there ever were a moment to break the glass and pull the alarm labeled "Never Again," that time is right now. According to ADL's Center on Extremism, in just 3 months after 10/7, there were 3,291 anti-Semitic incidents in America. That's an average of 34 anti-Jewish acts each and every day. Anti-Semitism isn't just an abstract issue. This is a real-life threat to our lives, to Jewish life in America, and again, to Jews around the world. Yes, it could happen here because it is. Yes, never is now, because if we don't insist on it, the consequences could be devastating. And that means all of us need to be clear-eyed about the threats that we face and have the determination to face them. Now, one of the biggest threats is that our opponents have worked tirelessly to muddy the message, to make what's morally clear fuzzy, to lie and to gaslight about what's happening. You know, at times it feels like we're all living in a Kafka novel. As we know, there's a group of people who want us to believe that anti-Zionism doesn't equal anti-Semitism, that somehow one can be adamantly opposed to the existence of the world's only Jewish state, where half of the Jews on planet Earth live, but have no problem with actual Jews. It's absurd. So let's make this very clear. Anti-Zionism is anti-Semitism. and look before the folks at Harvard or Columbia or the editors at left-wing Jewish magazines that few of us actually read, before they start to object, let's also be clear about what anti-Zionism means. Anti-Zionism doesn't mean having a problem with a set of actions by the Israeli government. Anti-Zionism doesn't mean protesting the policies of Prime Minister Netanyahu. Anti-Zionism doesn't mean you support Palestinian human rights. Anti-Zionism doesn't mean you're upset about the conflict in Gaza. Now look, that's what our enemies want you to think. And they are lying. Anti-Zionism, plain and simple, means that Jews, alone among all the peoples of the world, do not deserve freedom and self-determination in their homeland. Anti-Zionism is a negation of Jewish history, a denial of Jewish humanity. Today, in our October the 8th world, American Jews and Americans of all kinds, they're hearing with their own ears and they're seeing with their own eyes the hollow claim of those who purport to be anti-Zionists but not anti-Semites. It's rich. It's like saying in 1964, I don't hate black Americans, but I just don't think we need to pass the Civil Rights Act or end Jim Crow. It just doesn't add up. If your idea of expressing dissent against Israeli government policies is to attack Jews in America, or anywhere for that matter, that doesn't make you a decolonizer, or a freedom fighter, or a progressive. It makes you a bigot, plain and simple. And don't take my word for it. You know who's cheering on the anti-Zionists? The neo-Nazis and the right-wing extremists and the nativists that ADL has been tracking and battling for years and is still tracking and battling today. The tiki torch markers in Charlottesville and the SJP radicals are two sides of the same anti-Semitic coin. But I must say, I've got to share, what amazes me is that when ADL says that anti-Zionism is anti-Semitism, or when the Hillel director says that the mob chanting from the river to the sea outside their door on campus is a threat, journalists at major newspapers don't listen to the victim. Instead, they literally go looking for an alternative point of view. You all know what I'm talking about. You've all read these stories in the New York Times. To be sure, Professor so-and-so says, or the head of Jewish Voices for Peace counters. Really? Really? You know, when my friend Derek Johnson, the head of the NAACP, says that something is racist, reporters from the Times or journalists from MSNBC don't rush to the phones to get an alternative point of view from David Duke or the Proud Boys. So why is it different for us? Why are Jewish people being told over and over and over again that we have no say in what constitutes anti-Semitism? Why are the majority of us dismissed or marginalized or told we just don't get it? And even worse, even worse, they tell us that words don't mean what we know they actually mean. Take the word genocide. Educated people from the UN, foreign ministries around the world, and of course on elite college campuses, want us to believe that genocide is an army fighting a defensive war while facilitating humanitarian aid, even as they're texting and calling civilians, urging them out of harm's way. And yet we are told genocide is not the terrorists literally next door who not only said they want to kill every Jewish man, woman, and child, but actually did all that they could to reach every victim possible. And we're told that from the river to the sea doesn't mean eliminate the Jewish state and the Jews living between those two bodies of water. It's just a catchy slogan. And we're told, believe every woman, except if those being raped are Jewish women. And we're told that globalize the Intifada is not a call for a violent uprising, but just a Gandhian plea for nonviolent resistance. Really, what's up is down. What's hot is cold. Day is night. As Orwell famously put it, if thought corrupts language, language can also corrupt thought. Now, a case in point, time and again, especially since 10/7, elected officials, campus administrators, and the media tell us that the problem in America is the rise in anti-Semitism and the rise in Islamophobia or anti-Muslim hate. That's because of the conflict between Israelis and Hamas, that there is now a conflict happening, spilling out on our streets here in the US on both sides, that both are being attacked, that both are equally threatened on campus, that both are routinely, serially being harassed by their professors and teachers. Now look, I want to make sure that no one in this room or no one watching online misconstrues my words. Anti-Muslim hate is an absolutely unjustifiable form of bigotry, full stop. It should have no place anywhere in our country or anywhere in the world. And when it happens, we've got to take it seriously. We need to combat it, we need to prosecute it, and we need to stop it from happening. Whether it's a teenager being shot in Burlington, Vermont for walking down the street, or a small child, an innocent child stabbed to death in suburban Chicago. For years, ADL has been a partner in that fight, calling it out time and again, including advocating for resources that protect Muslim institutions and laws that prevent hate crimes against Muslims. We've done that in the past without hesitation. We will do it in the future without hesitation, and I'm proud of that track record. And yet the fact is that right here and now, there is no data that shows us that incidents of anti-Muslim hate today are at a level or a kind comparable to the rampant, raging anti-Semitism engulfing our campuses and our country. And to assert, to suggest that these two issues are of the same magnitude right now, or of the same urgency, is to minimize anti-Semitism. It is to silence Jews and those concerned specifically about anti-Jewish hate. Let's be crystal clear. This is not a contest about who has it worse, All Americans should be against all types of hate. The problem is the need that too many people seem to have in not singularly calling out and battling anti-Semitism on its own. It's tone deaf, it's insulting, and frankly, it feels like it's being done to minimize anti-Jewish hate and the wave away our real concerns. And let me tell you, at ADL, we won't let them. So we will never stop calling out and fighting anti-Semitism, whether it comes from the violent white nationalist or the hardened anti-Zionist. Both are threats, and we will battle them with equal energy. And we will do so. We will do so because we will never be quiet in the face of anti-Jewish hate. Unfortunately, right now, that battle, it's taking a different, more serious, and more dangerous shape. Groups like SJP and other Hamas apologists have embraced a whole new playbook since 10/7. Until now, their strategy was one of isolation or anti-normalization, as they call it, focused on boycotts, divestment, and urging progressive groups and all Americans, frankly, to shun and ostracize their Jewish neighbors. There are lots of examples of this tactic, like refusing to let Jewish groups march in the Gay Pride Parade in Chicago, or law school students trying to bar Zionist speakers in Berkeley, or climate activists in DC refusing to attend a rally and stand alongside their Jewish peers. But now, it's no longer enough for them. On October the 8th, as Israeli soldiers were still tracking down murderous terrorists hiding in Israel, as families, some of whom you will hear from today, were still wondering if their loved ones were dead or kidnapped or just incinerated beyond recognition, as all of us in the public were trying to grasp what had actually happened inside Israel, SJP released a new toolkit to their followers. This toolkit, which you can still find online, unapologetically celebrated the atrocities of Hamas, and it also spelled out a new strategy of confrontation to, in their words, dismantle Zionism. And we've seen the results of this strategy all over the country. That video you saw before I came on, it gave you a taste of it. It's the angry mob that vandalized a falafel restaurant in Philadelphia, just one of hundreds of businesses that we know of that have been hit coast to coast. It's the encampment outside the suburban home of our country's Secretary of State, the highest ranking Jewish American in the country, and so-called activists have erected a sign declaring their space Kibbutz Blinken, to evoke a nightmarish comparison to the kibbutzim that were savaged on 10/7. They sit there day and night while he travels the world trying to bring peace. They menace his young family, constantly screaming into megaphones and speakers to terrify and terrorize his wife and children. Or it's the Museum of Modern Art, right here in New York City, where a few weeks ago, the building was shut down as pro-Hamas activists shouted the names of the prominent Jews who happened to sit on MoMA's board of trustees. And of course, it's campus after campus after campus, where student centers have been occupied, classrooms disrupted, as SJP and their fellow travelers berate and belittle Jewish students, almost always with impunity. Facing these threats, it seems that the Jewish community in the United States has two choices: flight or fight. It pains me, as the head of the ADL, as a father, it pains me that some have made the choice to flee, to hide their identity, to wear a baseball cap instead of a kippah, to remove the mezuzah on their doorpost. I know of many parents who've instructed their children to change their names on their Uber profiles so they appear less obviously Jewish. I'm guessing that includes some of you in this room today. Look, these are tough decisions, deeply personal decisions. And I'm not judging, because I get it. I understand the desire to deflect the threat. I understand the urge to protect our kids. But I'm also seeing another response. Not deflection, but defiance. Not flight, but fight. There are reports of jewelry shops unable to keep gold stars of David in stock, as young people are proud to wear them around their necks. There are accounts of high schoolers suddenly donning kippot, proudly demonstrating to their classmates that they are Jewish and proud. And this isn't just a phenomenon driven by young people. Open your phones. I bet nearly everyone sitting here today in the Javits Center has a text chain or a WhatsApp group or a Facebook chat buzzing with people sharing information and organizing to help our brothers and sisters in Israel and to fight back against this onslaught of anti-Semitism around the world. And what we've seen in this new Jewish grassroots, in community after community, and in the work that ADL does every day, it gives me hope. It shows me, and it shows all of us, that the time for complacency is over. We can't assume that American Jewish life will continue to be a comfortable one unless we do something now, unless we transform ourselves from observers to activists, from onlookers to advocates. Our community has accomplished so much in this country and contributed so much to the common good. No one can take that away from us, and it's time we stop letting them think that they can do so. The Jewish community has been an indispensable part of this country since its earliest days. We have overcome discrimination, broken barriers, and exceeded expectations. We started companies, founded labor unions, and cured diseases. We built schools, funded universities, and started hospitals. We created theaters, launched studios, and started charities. We changed norms, passed laws, and secured judgments that made this country better for its Jewish people and ultimately better for all its people. You see, the bottom line is that there is not you see, the bottom line is that there is not a part of American life that the Jewish community has not touched and impacted for good. And so, the time has come to say the harassment and the attacks must stop. Explaining away your anti-Semitism will no longer be tolerated. Refusing to prosecute the laws or to enforce your own policies in your institution when the perpetrators are targeting Jews, it must cease. The twisting of language, the moral cowardice, the blind eye toward anti-Semitism must end now. Because if not, you will hear our voices. You will see us outside your doors, and we will see you in court. Our donations that you relied on, gone. Our votes that you seek, forget about it. Our friendship or alliances, no more. At this moment, in this October the 8th world, we will not be silent. We will not let our country be lost to the anti-Semites and bigots. We will not flee. We will fight, and we will win. Am Yisrael Chai, Am Yisrael Chai, Am Yisrael Chai. And God bless America. Thank you. Thank you. Now, a few months ago, I had my first opportunity to visit Israel since the 10/7 massacre. And let me tell you, there is absolutely no substitute for experiencing Israel's reality on the ground. We toured the communities in the Gaza envelope. We visited the kibbutzim. And I saw the spot where my friend, Ofer Lipstein, was killed. He was murdered that morning on 10/7 in Kfar Aza, a community that he really helped to build. This was a man dedicated to creating peace with his Gazan neighbors, and they gunned him down in front of his house. We toured the northern border. We saw the empty homes in Kiryat Shmona. We saw the smoke from a Hezbollah drone that attacked an Israeli position well inside the Green Line, killing an Israeli reservist. And we met with Israeli survivors of the attacks in the south, families of hostage victims, and so many extraordinary volunteers doing incredible work to provide aid to those in need. It was a difficult but important visit. My trip concluded by meeting with my friend, Israeli President Isaac Herzog. President Herzog and I discussed many topics, and of course, I shared my concern and the concern from all of us at ADL and all over America for what the Israeli people are enduring. But what struck me, what touched me, was the genuine concern that President Herzog, and frankly so many in Israel, expressed about the safety and well-being of us. He asked, with his hand on mine, about the safety of the American Jewish community and about our sense of anxiety in the face of rising anti-Semitism. I arrived there concerned for them, but I found that they in turn were concerned for us. Look, we are so fortunate to be joined today by a man who has been a steadfast protector of the Jewish people in Israel and a voice for all of us in diaspora, a man who is doing everything humanly possible to bring home our loved ones still held hostage by the terrorists in Gaza. He brings such an incisive perspective on the challenges we face and how we need to work to protect them, how we need to work to overcome them, how we need to work to come together. So truly, it is now my honor and an absolute privilege to introduce to us today from Israel the President of the Jewish state, Isaac Herzog.